So just generally hazards to be aware of. You know, you always want to look at, you know, do I have creosote or wood fence posts out there? Do I need to protect them? Do I not? Piles of brush, again, we would buffer that as much as possible and get the fire outside of that so we have a good area. Interior willows or cottonwoods or oak trees that might retain fire. Great, if we can keep them well into the fire unit, then we can essentially not have to worry about them. If they're on the edge of the fire, they create some trouble. Like here, if this is on the edge of the fire unit, well, we've got fire up in the tree there. We're not going to walk away from that. That tree is eventually going to fall down anyway, so we're going to have to, you know, mop that up and cut it down. Much better though to just avoid it and make the fire unit bigger, and just avoid all of this trouble. Historically, there was dumps, and you know there is still the meth lab issue that can be out there, which seems like that's not as big of a storyline as it used to be. I think that people have found more comfortable ways to make meth. That was a huge thing in Iowa about 15, 20 years ago. You just really had to be careful. Other stuff, you know, batteries, tires, you know, you just got to be aware of this. Clean up your fire unit before you burn it is really the take home here. And again, fire break, thinking critically about where your fire breaks are, your access points, not the day you're mowing, but what it's going to look like the day you burn. Because a stuck vehicle in a fire unit or on the edge of a fire unit changes everything. Now you've got a hazard that at best it's going to shut down your fire for quite a period of time. At worst, you might burn up a vehicle. And it just creates so much complexity. So think about that critically when you design your fire breaks. And then, you know, of course, there's the danger within the interior of ruts and things like that. So be aware of those things as you're designing your fire units. Let your crew know to always remind them about wildlife. You know, something like a skunk or a badger hole, you can twist an ankle. I mean, a skunk spray might take a person out of your crew for the day, or at least isolate them. And then there's, in drier conditions, wildlife can spread fire. I've seen pheasants fly out of burn units with their tails on fire. We've had rabbits that have been on fire. Only once, I'm not even sure if that's true. There was a time when we had a burning rabbit. I can't remember if it actually lit the other fire or not. But I know that there's stories of that, and so just be aware of that. It's always something to be aware of. Pheasants, like I said, in the unit can be a problem. Not very often, but just observe. And then, you know, if you're managing public land or next to public land, I think about all those folks that when the Corps opened up the Missouri River breaks to game fishing parks management, it was always public before that, but then it became very public. And if you ranch next to that and you're going to include those areas by default, and I mean, Sean deals with this down in the river breaks, but there's always that question, you know, is there anybody down there? Is there a turkey hunter down there that doesn't know what we're doing today? You know, and so scouting that unit becomes really important. Sean, do you guys take any real, I mean, do you go out and look in those bigger units before, like if you're gonna do 1,000 acres and include the public ground on the Missouri, do you have any way to ensure there's nobody down there hunting or?
No, we really don't. The way we deal with that is, since it is take ground with the Army Corps of Engineers and then GF&P ground, we notify them through our memorandum of agreement. And so we kind of put it on GF&P and those guys to make sure that part of the take ground is clear. Since we do most of our burns in the spring, we really haven't had too much trouble. You know, if it was in the fall where you're dealing with deer hunters and stuff like that, there's a lot more people messing around down there. But.
Thank you. So it's just something to be aware of. Telephone poles, we want to make sure that we account for those or any other utility type stuff in the fire breaks.